Who are your students primarily?
Primarily actors. I do have real people too, but primarily actors, and I would say primarily actors from other lands learning to sound American. People from England. I have a lot of Brits and a lot of Australians and a lot of people from the Middle East who want to sound American because they've realized that their lovely, beautiful accents are very limiting to them as far as roles are concerned. So they need to build a repertoire. So one of their first things that they have to work on is sounding American so that they can go for every role possible. So I would say mostly them.
And is there, a particular, let me see, what's my question here?
I think you want to know what kind of accent I teach. It is now.
And what kind of accent do you teach?
I teach them two things. I teach them an idealized American accent, which is how I'm speaking right now. So it's quite clear and quite lovely and quite perfect. But I also teach the contrary to that, is how the average person speaks. So I teach something like, can we go to the store? Then I teach, can we go to the store? So actually I never said can we. The second time I just said qui. Qui go to the store. And one of the first things I teach foreigners, people who learn English as a second language, always learn English really well, almost too well. So one of the words that little small word that they use a lot that Americans don't use is the word to. We actually don't say, my being an American now, we don't say, even though I was born in England and lived in Montreal and Toronto, but now I'm an American, we say ta, going to the store, I went today, I'm going tomorrow. We don't say today, tomorrow. And people who learn English as a second language always say, I'm going tonight to the store, today, toward. So that's a small thing that I have to teach them. And it's a hard thing because they've learned English and they've been speaking English for so long and they've always said to. So to have them do the little ta, it's a tricky thing. So I teach Joe on the street English, Joe on the street American, and then an idealized version of the American accent. So that they're very eloquent and when they need to be, but if they don't need to be so eloquent, then I teach the contrary.
Do you also teach actors an accent for a particular role?
Yes. Right now I'm working with an actress. She's an African American actress. She's quite famous, but she's working on a project and she needs a Ugandan accent for a film that she's working on. So we're working on that. And I have worked on an American who needed a French accent for a role, and I worked on this Aussie. He needed an Aussie. He needed a Liverpudlian accent to sound like he was from Liverpool. So we worked on that. So I do everything.
So you teach new Americans to sound American, and you also teach American actors foreign accents.
Right.
And what are the biggest challenges in learning a new accent? Let's say an American actor who wants to learn an English accent. What's the biggest challenge for that actor? I mean, first of all, how do you teach it? And secondly, what's the biggest obstacle that an actor has to overcome in learning an accent?
They get stuck in rhythms and they don't actually hear their own accent. Everyone thinks they don't have an accent. So it's
I don't.
No, you don't, darling. But everyone has an accent, and so what I have to do is, as I'm teaching them a foreign accent, I also have to make them very aware of the accent that they have already. So, for example, I had this wonderful actor. He's from New York, and he kept saying, dog, coffee. And in his mind, he's saying dog and coffee. So I had to show him on my board how he was speaking, and he still didn't get it. It took maybe an hour for him to really comprehend that he's saying dog, and the standard accent is dog.
And how did you get that across to him?
I have a whiteboard, so I literally write it out. Do-wog. Do-wog.
Spell that for us.
D-O-O-W-A-G maybe, or W-O-G, depends on the person. I also amend how I teach to the student. So if the student is from Spain or if the student is from Ireland, I write it out in sounds that they'll understand because I have an ear for that. I know what sounds will make them approximate the new sounds that they're working. And also, like people from New York do wonderfully at Cockney accents.
Why?
Why, you ask?
Yes, why?
Why do you ask? Because they're very similar. The New York accent is very close to Cockney. For example, the word talk. We are talking, are we not?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. So the standard American accent says talk. A New Yorker says talk. Someone from England, where I was raised, is talk. So talk, 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 and talk are quite similar, except there's a little diphthong sound there. But they're actually very similar. So Brits do really well with a New York accent, and New Yorkers do really well with a Brit accent.
What's a diphthong sound?
Oh, what's a diphthong sound?
Yes.
It's two sounds that make up one. For example, the letter A is actually made up of two sounds. Did you not know that?
How so?
No, how so, you ask? It starts out with a short E sound, as in the E in get, and then the E in need, for example. So if you put those two sounds together, you end up with E, A. Diphthong.
Diphthong. Okay. Interesting. Oh, yeah, I learned something.